Hello again. Welcome back and good afternoon. Deidre Martinez, CEO of the Sheboygan County Chamber of Commerce, and we are going to spend a little bit of time with candidate Kay Ladson of District 27 Assembly District in the state of Wisconsin. Unfortunately, Lindee Brill was not able to join us today, so we will just spend some time with Kay asking some questions and we'll take it from there. So with that, rules look a little different because we don't have to share time, but I'll give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and let us know, why it was important for you to run. And then we'll go through some question and answer and we'll do our best to make it as conversational as we can.
Super.
Okay. Thank you so much. So, Kay, please tell us a little about yourself.
Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me, and having this event. Thank you guys for being here today. I am a Wisconsin person, born and raised in Greene County, Wisconsin, which is in the southern part of the state. Those of you that have ever had, as I like to say, a spotted cow brew, you know where my father is from, which is New Glarus, Wisconsin. My mom and dad had a small dairy farm there, and I was the only child on that small dairy farm. So my father and I got to spend a lot of, in today's vernacular, quality time together as I learned what to do on the farm. And that is a great portion of my personality and who I am, being raised on a small farm. I was a 4-H kid, went to a small school, Albany School District, down in Greene County. I think my graduating class was 35. And the last alumni banquet I went to, it was smaller than that, but they're still there, all right, which is a good thing to see, all right. I have a bachelor's of education in business education. I taught a couple years at Elkhart Lake High School, business subjects. I picked up a master's in finance, typical female story at this point. Went to work, married, children, dropped out of the workforce until my children got to be a certain age. And when I went back to work with that master's, I went to work in Plymouth. At that point, Borden's, which was a huge international corporation, was headquartered there. Their cheese division was headquartered there. And I went to work in finance at Borden's in Plymouth. Eventually got promoted to corporate headquarters, which was Columbus, Ohio. So I worked there for quite a few years. My husband is from South Carolina. There was a medical issue with his mother, and she required somebody to be with her almost all the time. And so we were the couple that stood up and moved to South Carolina. So we moved down there. I continued in finance. I was operations controller for GCHI, which is a cement company. So I went from packaged cheese and real lemon and stuff like that to cement, which is a mining operation. A very interesting transition. I also was lucky enough in South Carolina to own and operate my own company with my husband. We did computer training and software development. When the time came that we could move back to Wisconsin, we moved back to Wisconsin. And I have enjoyed every moment being back here with 4 seasons and enjoy the winters, believe it or not, okay? I never did get used to waking up to like 85 degrees and a heat index of 102. It just never could adapt my body to that, all right? Why am I running? Well, part of it is that story, okay? That coming from a small dairy farm, that 4-H community, that small school, the Wisconsin, to me, always was kind of the gold standard of how a community should be and how a state should be run. And it was always that community feeling, on the farm of something broke. And my dad, and maybe or maybe I not, did have a driver's license at that point in time, would say, well, get in the truck and go over there, go and ask George, he's got the same kind of baler, I need this part. And you could do that back then. You could, your neighbors were almost an extension of your family. 4-H was the same way. And I felt when I came back, as has happened in most of the nation, we don't have that community feeling any longer. And my personal belief is we're losing that community feeling because we are losing some of our freedoms. And I want to protect these freedoms I think that we are losing, and I think we'll get that community feeling back. You can't legislate it, okay? But you can protect the freedoms, and I certainly can go down there and act and be a role model and not be divisive, not look for a microphone, but try and make us a community again, a state again, and start moving the state forward again.
Thank you. We will jump right into some workforce and economic development questions in true Chamber of Commerce fashion. So Wisconsin has significant economic disparities across different regions. In fact, Sheboygan County is comprised of roughly 30% ALICE population, or asset limited income constrained employed. So these are people who are employed and just cannot afford the basic needs. Right. How would you address these disparities through a targeted economic development initiative? And what metrics would you use to evaluate the effectiveness of these initiatives?
I think one of the areas that we can deal with in that particular population is one of the things I talk about, and that is the Medicaid expansion. Though people in those metrics normally don't have medical care, okay? So the Medicaid expansion, which we have been turning down for a number of years in the state of Wisconsin, costing us about $1.7 billion. And if you add on the savings, you get closer up into like the $4 billion number. Does a number of things, all right? It is available particularly for rural areas. And I know that we don't like to think that we live in a rural area, but quite frankly, that is how Madison and that is how the federal government sees us. They see us as a rural area. Mm-hmm. And that means that that Medicaid expansion would be available to push money out to these areas in terms of inpatient, outpatient clinics. With the savings, one of the things that we could do is hospitals and clinics are hesitant to build in a lot of the more rural areas just because they feel they don't get paid enough. Well, we could take that savings we would gain through the Medicaid expansion and up the amount that we pay them as a state. I think that's one of the things that we could do. And the metric is simple on that one, okay? How many of those people are they serving? Okay, do we see an improvement in their lifestyle and in their health issues, all right?
Sure.
I think the other thing that we need to do is literally increase the standard wage in the state of Wisconsin. I think that will help that metric. I know a lot of the corporations now from the pandemic raise their minimum wage just because they had to get people. But there are still a lot of corporations and businesses that still want to pay that basic minimum wage. And we need these people. They need to earn a standard of living where they can support themselves, where we don't have to have charities and for them to rely upon and food banks for them to rely upon. I think, again, if we increased the minimum wage, I think we would hit a lot of that metric. And that's an easy metric also. You just start looking at their tax reporting, okay?
Thank you. We've talked a lot I've been here for 7 years, so 7 years and probably the 20 years prior to me about our lack of workforce in the state of Wisconsin, mm-hmm. and specifically in Sheboygan County, as well as skills gaps that we are really just struggling to close. So what would be your plan to collaborate with educational institutions to ensure workforce readiness, to close the gap in skills, and to attract and retain more workforce to this community?
Can we break that into two parts?
You can break it into any amount of parts you'd like.
Okay. Well, let's just start with, I think, the major issue is, and that's the demographics of the state of Wisconsin. And we're not the only state having this issue, okay? We have an aging population, and we have a low birth rate. And again, that is not unique to Wisconsin. So if you don't address the demographics and you say, oh, gosh, more of my people are retiring, I'm not replacing them with younger people, and you ignore that, you have to start looking there. So one of my things I always talk about is there a way that we can get seniors who are retired back in the workforce? Can you be flexible enough in the hours that you have and the jobs that you have? I'm sure we've all seen, when I go to the grocery store, most of the baggers now are older people, okay? And I talk to them and I'll say, so you're working again? She goes, yeah, they gave me 3 hours and I can take as many hours off as I want. And so where I happen to shop, they're very flexible about doing that. Now, the caveat with that is we have to talk about Social Security also. So, nobody's going to work if you're a senior and lose your Social Security or have to pay income taxes on that differential. So we'd have to talk about, can we increase the amount that you can make as a senior and still collect your full Social Security. But I think that's one issue area that we don't address, is getting seniors back in. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Talking about our teens, our people in college, and I think there's a lot of them in Wisconsin that does it. Maybe we can get more apprenticeships so they are learning and earning while they are going to school, as long as you pay them a decent wage. This is not an invitation to have, unpaid, underpaid labor force, all right? You need to give them a working wage just like you would give anybody else. In terms of the educational aspects, I'm going to clarify with you. You are talking more of the technical school
yes.
Aspects, right? Okay. Interesting, because when I stopped working full-time at Elkhart Lake, I actually worked for Lakeshore Technical Institute. I don't talk about this a lot because it was just kind of a part-time job. First of all, I did training at the Elkhart Lake High School in the evening, and then Plymouth High School, and then eventually I did some training up at the school up by Two Rivers. And I've always thought the key to that, and I think it's a great program, and to me, it is one of the more successful education programs that we have going on in Wisconsin right now. They have great employment rates. They have people who go in, take that certification or that 2-year degree, and they get employed immediately. They tend to stay at the jobs. They're very good employers. The key is making sure that the school and the community can work together, I think, with the state of Wisconsin, and making sure that the technical schools are up to date in the skill sets that are needed. And I'm going to talk about AI because that's probably one of the newest ones out there. So are the technical schools prepared to get programming in at a level, or people in at a level, that they can deal with AI? We should be building that part of the technical schools right now, not waiting until it becomes like this pent-up demand. Oh, I need 400 of these people yesterday, right? We need to think about it. And I think that's the challenge with that, is getting the business community, the teachers, and also the taxpayers in that loop, in that consensus, to understand you have to build for the future. You always have to invest for the future. And that means taking a look at what's coming down the road, not what's here right in front of you, okay? I like to say I'm fiscally prudent, if I can just take a second to explain that. Fiscally, I think I'm okay, all right? I have a lot of training in it, a lot of jobs in it, so I know what assets are, I know what investments are, I know the measurements that you need to make sure that they are in line. But prudent to me means that I'm always going to look for the investment in the future. So one of my things that I talk about a lot is I want to invest back into the people of Wisconsin, whether that's education at any level. That's one of the areas I talk about. We need to put back into the people. We need to invest in our young adults. We need to invest in our children. We need to invest in our total Wisconsin population. And that falls right in line with that.
Thank you. With small businesses also being a vital part of Wisconsin's economy, what concrete policies would you implement to support their growth, particularly in underserved communities, and how would you measure the success of these policies? I think I would start, and since I had my own small business, this is probably a personal projection here. I think I was naive enough, having spent all that time with big corporate America. When I started my own company, I thought, oh, I can use a lot of the resources of the SBA. Well, the SBA really is defined as, small companies are things that are making only $10 million a year. I mean, for me, at a point in time I was starting it, making a $30,000 investment in computers was a huge amount of money for me.
So I think one of the things we have to do at the federal level, which I can't probably impact as much, but certainly at the state level, is redefining what we mean by small. Small is not $1 million revenue a year. Small is maybe 100,000 and under, and start taking our programs and scaling them down to help that type of organization. You know, most great ideas didn't start with $1 million. They started with $5,000 in a garage. I was just reading about the Uline company, this week, and I forget why. Something triggered me. I was like, I don't know anything about that company. They started that in their basement, and now they are just like the hugest distributor of packaging products in the United States, in their basement, which means that they didn't get any SBA help also, or maybe government help. So I think redefining what small is, paying attention to it, certainly, in my case, working with the local chambers, the local businesses. If you're going to be an assembly person for that district, you have to spend your time when you're back here on the road with everybody, talking to everybody, so you know what's in tune. And you could say, we've got some people over here that need some help. Do we need specialized funds if it is a low-income group, okay, or a DEI grouping? Maybe so, or maybe just special training. Maybe it's just special training, language training, understanding some of the business rules and kind of, maybe not rules, business things that go on in the United States if you are there, or people who have really great ideas who were born and raised in the United States but have never had a business in their family. So if you haven't had a person in your family to talk to, then it's hard to imagine how you get this house cleaning business started. You know that you are really good at cleaning houses, and you have friends that want to do this with you, but you don't even know how to get there because there's no role model for you. So maybe it's just a matter of training. Maybe we have free training. But we reach out to those people.
Thank you.
And the metric is simple until they start paying business taxes.
There you have it. I know you'd mentioned, talking about your upbringing and farming, and certainly agriculture plays a significant role in Wisconsin economy and lifeblood, in fact. So what can you think of are ways, or what policies would you support to put in place to lift up and protect local, small, family-owned farms versus our large corporate farming partners?
I think the same thing again, a redefinition. I mean, when we look at, for example, like the Farm Aid bill, which is stalled again, all right? You know, we have in the state of Wisconsin about 55,000 farms. If I'm wrong on that, somebody can correct me. I know it's 55,000 maybe plus, of which 5,500 are dairy farms. So I think first thing we have to make sure is when we're talking about farming, we understand it's just, I think in Wisconsin we have this picture of farming always being that small little dairy farm, kind of what I grew up on, you know, nice long lane with walnut trees growing up. That's not the picture any longer, okay? Most of the farmers are grain farmers, apple farmers. They are Robin, who I buy my organic vegetables from down the road from me. And so we have to make sure when we talk about farming, we're talking about all of these farmers equally. We cannot equate a concentrated feeding organization just because they happen to have a big bunch of dairy cows out there as more important, and certainly they're driving more revenue. If you just look at revenue as the basis for distribution as more important than just the fact that they're there. So one of my policies I would like to change, or maybe an existing policy, and take a look at the distribution of funds. And I think this is always my problem with the SBA, is that it's always revenue-based or acreage-based, all right, or tons produced. And so if you have a $10 million to give out, and you have big organizations, and you're doing it on revenue dollars, well, guess where the bulk of the money goes, all right? I'm not sure that that is the way to do it, or maybe we need to have some other standards. I don't have an answer for that, okay? But I know that that has always bothered me, that that is normally the normal way it's distributed. So that leaves the small dairy farmer, the small organic vegetable grower, the wineries in the state, the apple growers, pretty much getting not too much money from any funds that we give out, any policies that we have. I think we also need to promote our smaller farmers a little bit better, and within the state. I think a lot of people don't understand that the bulk of our farms are not dairy farms, okay? They are grain crops. And I will throw this in just because I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I don't have an opponent here today, and that is tariffs are a really bad idea for the Wisconsin farmer. Every time we do that, we put a tariff on China, they just stop buying grains from us. Done, okay? And then we simply take money from the state government or the federal government and we pay them their losses. We just give them a subsidy in terms of the loss. It seems to me much better if we could grow the grain. People want to work, okay? Farmers don't want to have money given to them. They want to grow crops and work. They really do, right? So the fact that they can't sell their grain or they have to not grow it because there's no place to move it to is against their grain, okay? No pun intended. So tariffs really would be a really bad, disastrous thing for the state.
Thank you. Recently, the study of Sheboygan showed a need for several thousand more homes, and the median household income in Sheboygan County was about $65,000 between 2017 and 2021. What measures would you take to address the affordable housing shortage, and how would you work with local municipalities to ensure they had the resources they need to be successful?
I think in Sheboygan County, you guys have done a marvelous job.
Thank you.
The Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation that has been started. Is everybody in the audience aware of the? Okay. I mean, you took that first step, which I don't see in all counties. That first step which says, ooh, we have a problem. You recognize the problem, and you did that back in 2021 and got this going. We have a housing problem. So that was the first step. And then that second major one, which a lot of organizations can't do, you did something about it, okay? So yes, you are very lucky within Sheboygan County to have 4 major corporations that gave you about $8 million, I think that was the number. And then also the Biden's ARPA funds were used with the county government provided that other portion of the funding. I think I have that correct.
That is correct.
So you have houses already built in Sheboygan Falls. I think I knocked on a few of those doors this summer, okay? And you have plans in the works for Founders Point. Okay? So in that regard, you know, one of the things that you always say when people ask you how do you overcome the housing crisis, well, you talk about private business and governments working together. Okay, you've already got that going in Sheboygan County. So how do I help you? Well, I just listen to you and see what you need from the state of Wisconsin and continue on with what you're doing. Now, can we do other things? Because I think, again, those houses are selling for what, $350, $400 to $400, and you're talking about an average income of $65,000. Is that it?
That was the median household income in the county between 17 and 21.
So, you know, at $65,000, a $400,000 house seems a little out of range. Now, I know you can get a loan for the down payment on that, okay? So we also probably have to look at some other things. Other ideas that I have talked about before is, I know that the state has some programs, and maybe we could do that at the district level. Do we have to always build new? Can we remediate some of the houses that we have available? A lot of us like to see things remediated and fixed rather than always tearing it down and building up new things. Can we take a look at the zoning? I mean, do we have to take a look at our zoning laws? Do we have to have quite that amount of setback? Do we have to have quite that amount of space on the side? Can we build them a little bit closer together? Can we go up? One of the interesting things You know, living in other parts of the country, it gives you perspective. Charleston, South Carolina, where I lived for all those years, is, most people know it as a tourist town, okay? And that's a tourist town because they have built upon that aspect of, this is how the city looked, you know, at the time when it was founded, back in the 1700s. And that's a great catch to get tourists, but it limits your height to here. So, and they won't budge on that. So what did the city do? As it had to grow, it simply went out and out and out. And it's built around the ocean, and it's built around the low country. Literally, that is an area of land that is below sea level, which means you have a lot of bridges. So since you can't go up, you go out, and now you have interstates and highways that literally, it would take me to get from my house to West Asheville suburb, which is a 10-minute drive on a good day. On a work day, that would be 45 minutes. Because I'm going over 4 bridges and people coming in off of 4 bridges. I'm trying to make the point. You have to think about, people don't like to talk about going up, but the only other choice is to go out. So do we have to take a look at height limitations? Can we look at ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units? You know, a lot of seniors like to be in their house, and they like to stay in that house. But maybe it's time to have that house be a smaller scale right behind one of their kids' house. We could look at auxiliary dwelling units, I think is another thing. In terms of the government, you know, that finance background comes in, that little bit of auditing that I used to do, that IT background that I have, and it says, well, can we look at the processes? Are we stuck? Who knows how many bills from 1849 we have lingering around in the real estate part of our government that we don't have to have any longer? So can we take a look at some of these older bills, get them off the books? Can we take a look at maybe we have legislation passed at the local level and it's the same as the state one, and we enforce those twice? You know, can we get that type of duplication off? Can we get make sure they're reciprocal? I was not surprised during the pandemic when the unemployment system for the whole state went under. Particularly not surprised because we've been underfunding the IT systems at the state and federal level for years. And to find out it was developed in, was it COBOL or Fortran? I can't remember which one. Okay, well, either it doesn't make any difference. Those are really old languages, all right? Maybe we have that same issue at the local level. People have a hard time supporting IT systems. They're like, oh, they're putting a new computer system in, you know. But if that computer system is slow and bulky and making your permitting processes hard for your construction people, then maybe we can get some state money in here to upgrade your computer systems. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do. And I like the idea of doing them locally. I mean, Kamala has some great ideas in terms of giving money out to young couples to get housing, okay? Tammy has some great ideas out there in terms of renters, particularly out-of-state people who buy whole blocks of houses and rent them, and then, you know, getting like a transfer tax so we can build some houses. But that takes time. That has to filter down. Local real estate laws is what we're talking about here. We can do those real quick, and we can move fast on those.
Thank you. We're going to transition a little bit and talk about access to education. So tell us, what is your stance on school choice programs such as vouchers in charter schools?
Now, you're saying school choice in terms of I can pick to go to a voucher school. You're not using it in terms of the taxing thing.
Well, school choice meaning, yes, I can get a voucher and go to whichever school I'd like to go to and take this voucher to pay for it.
Okay. I am a product of a public school, okay, and I'm a very proud product of a public school. Also went to the universities of Wisconsin at a time when the support was major coming from the state of Wisconsin. So I am a strong believer in public schools. If you want school choice and you want a voucher school or a charter school, I believe that's your choice. But I also believe that that voucher school, that charter school, has to meet the same standards as a public school. The same physical standards, So if the public school has to have X amount of feet for special ed needs or for gym, then those charter and voucher schools have to have the same thing. If the public schools have to have certified teachers and X amount of teachers per student, then the voucher schools have to have that same amount of thing. I don't believe, you see where I'm going with this, I don't think I have to continue. If you want to have that, so you can have a charter school or that has a mission, or a voucher school that's there because they do religious studies, well, then those religious studies have to be done at the end of the day. They can't be done because public schools don't do religious studies during the day. If you want that, that's fine, but they have to be the same. And I'm looking at this strictly from a finance view. I don't believe there is a state in this nation that can continue to support two separate school systems. The South tried that for years. Think about the southern states back in the 40s and 50s and early 60s with their separate but unequal, as we know, schools. I have seen the outcome of that. Those school systems to this day, if you do a ranking of the best schools in the United States down through the worst, you will see consistently Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi as 50, 49, 48, 47. And the problem is that because of all those years where they physically and monetarily supported those two school systems, and actually it was three, because the really rich people down south were sending their kids up to boarding schools up in New York and the East Coast, all right?
I tried to send mine, but I couldn't afford it.
That's right, yeah. I mean, it becomes fiscally impossible to maintain this after a while. And I know this is not a popular thing to say, but this is what I believe. I just don't think we can sustain this. So if you want voucher and charter schools, then they have to be the same, because then it becomes the same equal choice. Right now it is not the same choice. So we need to push back on voucher schools, we need to increase our revenue limits for our public schools, and we need to fund special education. And also, if you have voucher and charter schools, they cannot turn away special ed students.
Thank you. In light of growing mental health concerns among students, what comprehensive strategies would you propose to integrate mental health services into Wisconsin schools? And how would you plan to ensure these services are accessible to all students?
That's a really tough question.
I get told that a lot.
Yeah. Now I do know that if we could push the Medicaid expansion, that they have a lot of mental services that the state and public school systems could use. Okay. That might be one way to introduce this in. I'm not sure how the scope of it, because I believe from my reading that COVID exposed within our student population a mental crisis at almost every school throughout the state. All right. I can't see that we could afford to have a mental health specialist or 2 or 3 at every school. So maybe we have to do this as a community. Maybe it's by assembly district. Maybe we have a center for mental health specialists where the schools could pay in evenly. Because I do think we need this, all right? I'm not saying we don't need it, but we have to think about how we can fiscally maintain this. Because you can't send somebody in for 2 weeks and go, there you go, okay? I mean, this is going to be a long, ongoing program. So I guess I would think about something like that, okay?
Thank you. And we will transition to the next topic. We've had a lot of questions come in about equal rights amendment, about reproductive rights, about LGBTQ plus rights, all of the things. So what is your position on an equal rights amendment to the Wisconsin Constitution, and why do you support your position?
Well, I'm in favor of it. Okay. And how do I support it?
And why do you support it?
Why do I support it? Because that's my value. Those are my values, all right? To not support equal rights for everybody, I can't imagine a world where that is not a truism, where you are not as important as I am and I'm not as important as you are. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care what faith you have. I don't care what political party you belong to. I don't care what country you came from. I think this is a human value that we should all support. This is morally where we should take our stand. I probably have a couple personal issues that are thrown in there. You know, when I started in business years ago, I came in through what was called an EEO program back then, along with a lot of bright young women and a lot of bright young black people and Hispanic. And we did fine, all right? Because once you got in the door at any of the organizations or businesses you went to work, yeah, that got you in, got you past that interview, and the HR person was like, oh yeah, I get some EEO points, I might make my bonus this year, all right? That didn't mean you were going to stay. That meant that you just got in. You had to do the job, and you had to do that well. And I know a lot of my friends and people that I worked with came in that way. We did fine. To take that out is to deny and to say that you can't get a job interview because you're a woman. You can't go to this school because you're black. You can't vote. You can't be in athletics because you're transgender. I don't believe that that is the right moral attitude to have in the United States.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the legalization of marijuana. I know we're getting close to time. So what is your stance on the legalization of marijuana for recreational use in Wisconsin? And how would you propose to use any tax revenue generated from legalization?
I think the only thing illegal and crazy about not having it is not having it legal in Wisconsin, okay? Don't want to get myself in trouble here, all right? But we all know friends who probably use hemp products, all right? And I think it's a shame. I'm smiling because when I get my life back, Chuck just asked me earlier, he said, what are you going to do on Tuesday? And I said, I'm going back to my real life. I will be at the Y at my normal aquatic exercise routine at 7 in the morning, like it is before life before campaigning. And I'm smiling because it is a group of older women. We're all retired. And I'll guarantee you 80% of them use some kind of hemp product. I know because they talk about it, okay? And that is from all religions, all races, okay, and all politics. So what service are we doing to the state of Wisconsin by not legalizing it? We're doing a big service to Illinois, all right, and the states around us because people are driving to those states to get the product. So why should we give them the tax revenue that we could have here? Why should we deny our farmers, if we really are concerned about our farm community, the ability not to grow that crop along with other crops? And by legalizing it, then we can run it through our banks and not make sure we don't have some of the issues that they have in some of the western states. And I forgot the last part of the question that you asked me.
And what would you use any of the funds for?
Oh, boy.
That we might take from Illinois or Michigan?
I have two things I talk about. People normally ask that in terms of the surplus that we have in the state of Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. So I guess I would use those same funds there. Although I probably, because it's cannabis and it's medical, I think a good portion of that should go towards medical scholarships so that we can get doctors and nurses, registered nurses, because we need all of those in the state of Wisconsin. So to reserve a portion to send those doctors and nurses free through the universities. The other portion would certainly go towards childcare for young parents. I think we need to have the Child Care Accounts Act as a permanent thing, and maybe we can use some of that money to make that ongoing for our young adults, young parents who have child care, and also do for our school systems.
Thank you. And the last question I will ask, and then we'll give you an opportunity to give some closing comments.
Okay.
So the citizens of Wisconsin have watched both sides continue to disagree and really refuse to collaborate or compromise on most issues. Tell us how you plan to reach across the aisle to get more accomplished and influence your party to follow suit.
Well, if I could just pass a bill, right, that says you have to talk to him, you have to talk to her. And we could do maybe like the dating game, okay? Can you imagine the assembly?
Speed networking.
Speed networking.
We do that in the chamber all the time, in fact.
Maybe
it's a very successful business model.
Maybe that's it. Maybe we do speed politics up in Madison, okay?
I'd be happy to host.
I will call you down, okay? I mean, ideas sound crazy at times, but sometimes that's the thing that works. I think the thing that works is you just have to get people talking again. And so whatever means I have. I'm a very outgoing person. People who know me will tell you that. I will talk to anybody. I don't get normally upset. Takes a lot. I've been through a lot in life, so there's hardly anything you can say to me that makes me really irritated anymore. So my thing is I will just try and do the best I can. I also know that I'm very good at planning, organizing, and finding people with the strength I need to get a project done. And whether those people have the same politics as me or not, that is not the issue. Okay? So if you have a project you're working on, you need to get a bill passed, and you know that that person there is really strong on that subject, then what you need to do is work to know that person, and you need to get that person in talking with you, regardless of their political beliefs, because they know about this subject. And once you get people talking, I think you can normally move forward. If it's so bad that people can't talk, I don't know. I don't know that there's an answer then. I think, if there was a magic answer to this question, somebody would be richer than Oprah at this point. All right?
I can tell you what worked for my children, and I have 6. When my kids would argue growing up, we had an extra large t-shirt and a love seat. And I stuck that shirt on 2 of the kids, or sometimes 3 at a time, and they had to sit there until they figured out a way to get along. And the longer they argued, the longer they sat there with that extra large t-shirt around all of them together. I'd be happy to take that to Madison if you'd like.
I have this mental...
Or DC.
Yeah, I have this mental picture of like Robin Voss and Tony Evers and... I think you have to do whatever works. We have to get over this in the state of Wisconsin. We have to get over this as a nation. And so I would try any crazy idea that would work, okay?
Hug it out.
That's right.
That's what it is. It's the hug it out.
That's right.
Thank you. And if you'd like to take just a couple of minutes to, any closing comments, anything that we didn't discuss today that you want to make sure people know as they head out and vote.
I think I've covered most of my issues that my firm belief in. I just need to tell you that I have certain values. I've already kind of expressed those values to you, but I'm not going to Madison with an agenda. Okay, I don't have this preset thing like this is the one thing I want to do and I'm going to run and find a microphone. That is not me. Okay, I have that work ethic. I understand Wisconsin rural values. I know very well that in Wisconsin we work hard. We really do. I have lived in various states and people would say, oh, you're from Wisconsin. Oh, you're going to be a hard worker. True. Honestly true. Even in New York, even in New Jersey, oh, you're from Wisconsin. You're going to be a hard worker. So we work hard in Wisconsin. What we want is that dignity that we deserve when we work hard. Okay? That dignity that we can have a good life. We have a life of no economic fears, okay? We're not afraid to vote. We're not afraid to speak out. We're not afraid to hug our neighbor because we think their politics are different, okay? So again, I don't have an agenda. I'm not looking for a microphone. I'm looking just to help you get a better life and get that community feel back again in the state.
Thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
thank you, Kay, for just your willingness to serve. We've heard a lot from candidates today, and well, it's probably not a whole ton of fun right about now. So we wish you the best of luck next week, and hopefully you get a really good nap on Wednesday. But thank you again to everybody who came to participate. Thank you for WSCS for your partnership in coming to film all of these with us today. Unfortunately, our District 59 candidate forum has been canceled due to neither candidate being able to participate. But thank you for everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and don't forget that your last chance is Tuesday, November 5th. We'll see you at the polls.